Okie dokie. All right. So I have cough drops in my pocket. I still have one in my mouth. And so hopefully I'll be able to make it through class today. Moadim L'Simcha. Happy Sukkot, everybody. This today is the sixth day of the holiday, the fourth intermediate day, for those keeping track. Because in Israel, it's the same amount of days, but the same different amount of intermediate days in the holiday. Um, anyway, so Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Last time we left off right before the Mishnah, so nothing that we have to review. We'll just keep on going with the new Mishnah. But the last Mishnah talked about people who live around the courtyard, private residences around the courtyard, and what people in those residences are allowed to do business-wise in their homes without unduly affecting the privacy that other people in the courtyard should expect. Okay, so let's see what this Mishnah talks about. One whose wall was close to the wall of another may not build another wall close to the neighbor's wall unless he distances it 4 cubits from the wall of the neighbor. And one who desires to build a wall opposite the windows of a neighbor's house must distance the wall 4 cubits from the windows, whether above, below, or opposite. Now, we had something like that last year, and I just want to see if there's a picture here that goes with this. There is a note. Sorry for making you crazy here. Just a second here. Okay. So, all right. So there is, well, I'm not sure the note really helps. It just gets to confusion. So let's, so I thought that there would be a picture here to help understand the situation that the Mishnah is presenting. So one whose wall was close to the wall of another may not build another wall close to the neighbor's wall unless he distances it 4 cubits. Okay, you already have a wall that's close to a neighbor's wall. If you want to build another wall on your property that's going to be close to your neighbor's property, you have to make it 4 cubits away. I'm not sure why, and the Gemara will explain. And then one who desires to build a wall opposite the windows of the neighbor's house must distance the wall 4 cubits from the windows, whether above, below, or opposite. So I guess you have to allow your neighbor to have a view outside of their window. It's like apartments in New York City. Some apartments have a view of the air shaft or something like that. Others have a view of a brick wall, but that was already there in the apartment. So if somebody, let's say you have a view of the Hudson River, because for some reason I've driven on the Palisades Parkway, and along the Palisades Parkway, you got a number of homes that have a beautiful view of the Hudson River. But what if in front of that house, somebody finds an empty plot of land and wants to build a house on it that will impact the view of the house from the other side of the street? A view that they've already had. Is that allowed to be done? So a lot of zoning regulations around that with views and stuff like that. So let's see what the Gemara has to say. Yes, Bess?
I'm confused.
Yes.
Is it parallel or perpendicular? Are they talking about close to the wall?
Um,
I can't picture.
I don't know. All I know is it's telling us 4 cubits away. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think it matters if it's parallel or perpendicular. That wherever the wall begins in relation to the neighbor's wall, it has to be 4 cubits away. Okay, Gemara. The Gemara comments. Before addressing the construction of the second wall, one could ask, and with regard to the first man, how did he place his wall close to the neighbor's wall in the first place? Right? So the Mishnah starts that there's already two walls of two neighbors' walls that are close together. So the second, if the first one neighbor wants to build another wall on his property, so the question the Gemara is asking, what about the first wall that's already there? And with regard to the first man, how did he place his wall close to his neighbor's wall in the first place? Rav Yehuda said that this is what the Tana is saying. So in other words, how can we understand the Mishnah better? Like, why is it starting with a given that there are already two walls, and you're starting with a third wall that's about to be built? Why doesn't it start with that original wall? Like, what kind of weird kind of halacha is the Mishnah teaching by assuming that there are walls already there, and now what happens when you want to build another one? So now they're suggesting that this is what the Mishnah really wanted to say. So here's a picture. You got the neighbor's wall here. You got the original wall here, which might be less than 4 cubits away. You want to build a new wall. The new wall you're going to build this way, 4 cubits away from this. Now, what's the purpose of this? If this is the boundary is in this space that's less than 4 cubits apart, that's your neighbor on the top. This is your wall here. What's the purpose of building this wall over here? I don't know. And then here's another idea. Perhaps what we're talking about, a perpendicular wall that already was in place. The new wall that the Mishnah is talking about is this one that completes a third side of the square. So one possible idea that the Mishnah is teaching is this picture. Another possible idea that the Mishnah is teaching is this. So the rabbis of the generations immediately after the Talmud was edited came up with this picture right here. The Rambam, who is in the 1000s and the beginning of the 1100s, so he's 500 years after the Talmud was edited, he came up with this idea, the three-sided square. So just interesting that for like 400 years, they understood the Mishnah this way. And then the Rambam understood it this way. So now, let's see what the Gemara actually says. One who comes to place a wall close to his neighbor's wall may place that wall close to the neighbor's wall only if he distances his wall 4 cubits from the existing wall. Accordingly, the Mishnah is discussing one constructing a wall close to his neighbor's wall the first time. Rava objects to this explanation, but the Mishnah teaches one whose wall was near the wall of another, which indicates that there had already been a wall there. Rather, Rava said that this is what the Mishnah is teaching. In a case of one whose wall was near the wall of another, at a distance of 4 cubits, and it fell, he may not place another wall close to his neighbor's wall unless he distances a wall 4 cubits from it. What is the reason that this distance must be observed? The reason is that walking here benefits there. That is, the ground is strengthened by people walking on the land in the area between the walls. I'm not sure what that means. How is the ground strengthened here between the walls? I would think that the grass that's there gets worn away. I'm not sure how. I mean, it might pack down the earth by walking out on it all the time, but I'm not sure how that's a benefit. And there's no note on it. But yes, Bess.
Is this new wall in that first picture, the first um decision? Yeah. Is that on the uh oh, who owns this space
Oh,
there?
so I think the top wall where it says neighbor's wall, that's the other property, and the so there's one person's property is neighbor's wall, the other property has old wall and new wall on it. That's how I understand it. Okay? So in other words, it wouldn't make sense that new wall is part of up above neighbor's property. That wouldn't work because this wall, the second gray wall, would be on how could somebody else's property be there in between? So I think because the Mishnah says you want to build another wall. So this is the other wall you want to build, where it says new wall. So are you building the new wall here, 4 cubits away from this one? 4 cubits is 6 feet away. Do you want to do it that way, or do you want to? I think Rambam's idea makes most sense here, that you're building a square here, but then the boundary between the neighbor's wall and your property is in this tiny space here in the shadow between the neighbor wall and the old wall. I think that's the boundary, and this and your the guy who wants to build a new wall, he owns the property on which these two perpendicular walls are built. Okay, so that's how I'm picturing it. So Rav says they taught that one must leave a space of 4 cubits between his wall and that of his neighbor only if he builds it alongside the wall of his neighbor's garden, where people do not usually walk due to the seeds. But with regard to the wall of a courtyard, where people walk, if he comes to place his wall close by, he may place it close by. By contrast, Rabbi Oshaya says, with regard to both the wall of a garden and the wall of a courtyard, if one comes to place his wall close by, he may not place his wall close by. So I'm still having a hard time understanding if this is all a courtyard. What's the point of building walls in the courtyard on everybody's individual property within the courtyard? I'm not sure what the wall comes to do. Does the wall come to extend your property into the courtyard to give you more space that you can claim as your own? If that's the case, then perhaps this picture makes more sense. Yes, Zella. I can't hear you for some reason. You are unmuted, but I can't hear you. No, I still can't hear you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know why I can't hear you. Yeah. You could type the question if you want as we're going, but I'm not sure why. Is your microphone on? It is. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I have any instructions on as a host for you particular that, no, I have nothing there to tell you about your microphone. I'm sorry. Okay, so like I said, if a person is building walls in order to extend property into the courtyard, this picture makes sense. Not sure how this picture helps if you're extending your property into the courtyard. So then I'm not sure then also how Rambam makes this, comes up with this diagram, like what is the purpose of that picture of that diagram? How does that benefit the person who's building the walls? You want to try talking? We still can't hear you, Zella, so I don't know. Okay, so Rav says, they taught that one must leave a space of 4 cubits between his wall and that of his neighbor, only if he builds it alongside. Okay, so he did that. Rav Yossi Bar Chanina said, and the two Amoraim do not disagree. That is, Rav and Rav Hoshaya. This statement of Rav is referring to an old city whose ground is well trodden and stable, and that of Rabbi Hoshaya is referring to a new city where even the wall of a courtyard requires walking on its adjacent ground to strengthen it. Okay, so I'm not a civil engineer from the time of the rabbis to understand how walls are built and how they become stable in the ground. I really don't know how that works. I don't know how walls, I think city walls were built on top of city walls. So like if you were to dig below the walls of the old city, the walls of the old city, that of Jerusalem, those walls that you see, like the outer wall, when you're walking through the Jaffa Gate, those walls were built by the Ottomans 500 years ago. So I would imagine that if you dug underground next to the wall, you'd see that the wall continues underground, and it might be built on something else that was there already before. So sometimes that happens, but I don't know anything here about the idea that new city versus old city trampling the ground in order to stabilize the ground. So let's go on. With regard, here's even more. With regard to the claim that the halacha of the Mishnah is due to the need for space for people to walk on the ground between the walls, the Gemara asks, we learned in the Mishnah, and one who desires to build a wall opposite the windows of a neighbor's house must distance the wall 4 cubits from the windows, whether above, below, or opposite. So this is a wall being built that would obscure the view from the neighbor's window. So that's from above, because the wall extends that high. Here's from below. The neighbor's window is above and the wall's below. Wall low enough to prevent one standing on it from peering into the window. So that's the idea, if you can see from the wall into your neighbor's window. So this, if you stand on it, if you still can't see into the window, then that's okay. And it's taught in a Braita with regard to this ruling concerning the requirement of a distance above. The wall must be high enough so that one cannot peer into the window and see into the window. Concerning the requirement of a distance below, the wall must be low so that he will not be able to stand on top of it and see into the window. And concerning the requirement of a distance opposite, one must distance the wall from the windows so that it will not darken his neighbor's house by blocking the light that enters the house through the window. Right? So if the neighbor's entitled to light coming through and also privacy from his window. So by building the wall, if you prevent light from coming through, and if you also enable yourself to see in, then that kind of wall is prohibited. The Gemara analyzes this statement. The reason that distance is required opposite the window is so that he will not darken his neighbor's window by blocking the light that enters the house through the window. But it's not due to the fact that walking will strengthen the ground. The Gemara answers, with what are we dealing here? We are dealing with a wall that is positioned to the side, that is perpendicular to the wall with the window in it, and therefore it blocks the light from entering the house through the window, but does not prevent walking along the length of the neighbor's wall. The Gemara asks, and how far must one distance his wall if it's perpendicular to the other wall? Yeva, the father-in-law of Ashyan bar Nidbach, says in the name of Rav, as much as the full width of the window. The Gemara asks, but why is this sufficient? Can't he still peer into the window if he's that close? Rav Zevid says, this is referring to one who slopes his wall That is, he fashions an incline on the upper surface of the wall so that he will not be able to stand on top of it and look through the window. Okay, so this rabbi, Rabbi Yeva, father-in-law of Ashian bar Nidbach, never heard of him before, and he might be an expert on building walls, and that's why he's quoted here. So that's how his opinion is quoted here about the perpendicular wall. If it's built at an incline where you can't stand on top of it, then that might give you more permission to build a particular kind of wall.
Rabbi,
Yes.
is this more about privacy or land use?
Right. So there's privacy, and there's also making sure the neighbor has light coming in through his window. Okay, so it's those two reasons. Yeah. So that's that. Apparently, that's what the rabbi's concern is with the distance of 4 cubits from above, below, and in front of, in order to maintain an individual's right to privacy from that window and light from that window.
Were property lines pretty good back then, or were they?
So
They
property,
surveyed.
yes, property lines out in the territories, like outside of a city, were pretty clear, and they go back to ancient times from when the tribes were in the land of Israel. So I think this is more talking about within a town or a village or a city. You know, the way people build houses today is very different from medieval cities. Like if you were to walk into, and I haven't done this, but I think I've seen pictures of it. If you were to walk into a medieval home from Spain or some other, yeah, I think in Spain, because Spain has kind of like a Muslim influence, so Middle Eastern influence. A home from the viewed from the street, it might just be like a door that you see within a wall that is on the street. But if you open the door of that wall, you're walking into a courtyard, and then it might be a private a residence for the whole thing, or there could be separate private residences all around that courtyard. So we don't have that kind of construction anymore today, unless maybe very wealthy people who build multi-million dollar estates might build that on the model, on this kind of model. But homes today don't have like these courtyards that, so we're not so familiar with this kind of construction. But we
You
yeah.
still have some similar ordinances. For instance, our house, when our house was built, there was a concrete slab
Uh,
off of our deck that was less than 10 feet from our neighbor's property,
uh,
and we had to get an exception for that. So
uh,
obviously, I learned you're not supposed to build your house within 10 feet of
uh,
property.
right.
Put up a fence, the tradition is to put your fence within 2 feet of the property line. Not a law, but
Right.
I
Right.
guess
I know.
we still have some of it. Uh,
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I'm not sure why you can't build your fence right up to the property line. I'm not sure what the benefit is, but I see that in my own neighborhood. A lot of homes have built, when we first moved into the house nearly 20 years ago, there were no fences around the properties that were like around our backyard. So you could really walk from our backyard throughout our neighbors' backyards. But now almost everybody has a fence, and the fences do not go up all the way to the property line. So I'm not sure why that is. Like, do you need to have access for some non, for some person walking through the neighborhood that they actually can walk between the fences to access property? I don't know why you're not allowed to build a fence right up to the neighbor's property.
but I think you can. I think it's just tradition not to. But
Uh, right.
I think it's also because property lines are not exact.
Well, I don't know about that though. I mean, I mean, I have part of my title to my property is a surveyed map of my property, right? That Montgomery County um, surveyors, whatever that is, you get the plat for your property.
Right.
I think,
But find the point.
uh-huh.
Find the point. It's not always that easy.
I see, I see. So people
Over
building a
time,
fence.
I'm sure in the 20 years, you've had, the stakes have settled,
Uh-huh.
dirt has moved around.
Right. Okay. I get that. And I guess the fence companies who build the fence do it like they don't bring out with them
Right.
that surveyors measuring devices that you see when engineers are building a road. Yeah. So it's maybe so. I guess okay. But then you're still left. But then again, I guess across the street both neighbors have a fence and they share a wall. One of the fences like has only one fence
Yeah.
that is shared by both neighbors. Um, so I guess if neighbors agree to share a wall of a fence,
Yeah. We have
you can do that. So yeah, so I don't know. So that's one thing. So that's in modern times in suburbia. Within a courtyard, it gets a little stickier. It's one thing if all the people living in the courtyard are friends with each other and can come up with mutually agreed upon walls and stuff like that without in a friendly manner. But what happens if people aren't friendly? Then how do you go about this? So this is basic neighborliness to ensure that people get what they deserve from their property, and that is privacy, people not invading their property, physically invading their property by building a wall or something, and also um, you're getting sunlight when you have a window that faces out to the courtyard. All neighbors have to ensure that the neighbor can get light through the window. So,
Oh,
yes, go ahead.
this is not Talmudic. In Julian, when you put your fence 2 feet away from your lawn, property line, you've got who mows that 2 feet of lawn? Just you?
That's right too. Right. Yeah, no, that's interesting too.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's done. Um, so my neighbor on one side of me has a fence, but they decided not to fence. They only fence their backyard for their dogs, and they decided to fence in just a certain segment of their backyard so that really, I think the edge of their fence must be like 10 feet away from our shared property line. So he does still mow on the other side of the fence that's still on his property. So, and now the one neighbor
We
that's
are neighbors too.
yes, there's another neighbor behind me. They have a fence that shares with not my property, but my other next door neighbor, Margie and Steve Iserick's property. And so Margie and Steve don't have a fence. So I think the person who mows their lawn goes right up to that neighbor's fence. And I don't know if they're mowing actually their property or they're mowing their neighbor's property when, when they're mowing their lawn. So I don't know. There's no wild grass in my neighborhood in between these fences. So somehow it all gets done. Yeah. Okay. So the Gemara asks, but didn't we learn in the Mishnah that one must keep the wall 4 cubits away from the window? The Gemara, so in other words, so you can slope it so you don't walk up. So you're preventing you're still maintaining privacy, but you might be blocking sunlight. The Gemara answers this is not difficult. Here, he builds the wall on one side of the window, whereas there in the Mishnah, he builds walls on two sides of the window. In the latter case, if he builds the walls any closer, he'll block the light from entering the house through the window, even if they are perpendicular. The Gemara suggests, coming here, further difficulty from the Mishnah below with regard to the claim that the requisite gap between the walls is for the purpose of walking, as the Mishnah teaches. And one must distance his wall 4 cubits from a roof gutter so that his neighbor can lean a ladder in the empty space and clean and repair the gutter. So that could be a reason to have space so people can maintain their property. The Gemara analyzes this statement. The reason this distance is required is due to the fact that he'll be able to lean a ladder, but it's not due to the fact that walking will strengthen the ground. The Gemara answers, right? So that was the answer above. You need space to walk to strengthen the ground. This one's offering, you need space to put a ladder or do anything, do other kind of maintenance of your property. The Gemara answers with, what are we dealing here? We're dealing with a sloping roof gutter which protrudes beyond the boundary of the wall. As in this case, if the reason for distancing the wall is due to walking, one can walk back and forth beneath it. Nevertheless, a distance of 4 cubits from the roof gutter is required so that repairs can be performed. Okay, so now, that's what this conversation is referring to, is this next Mishnah. One must distance his ladder 4 cubits from a neighbor's dovecote so that a mongoose will not be able to jump from the ladder to the dovecote and devour the birds. And one must distance his wall 4 cubits from a roof gutter so that the neighbor can lean a ladder in the empty space to clean and repair the gutter. Okay, so you also have to be aware on your property what you might do that might impact your neighbor's property. So if your neighbor has a dovecote, you can't build something close to the dovecote that's on your property that might allow an animal to be able to jump from your thing that you're building into your neighbor's dovecote, right? So in this case, a mongoose that could be a pretty smart animal that can climb the ladder and then jump over into the dovecote and have lunch and dinner to his heart's content. So, okay. So the Gemara, let us say, I was just looking to see if there was a picture. Let us say that the Mishnah is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. As if it were in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, doesn't he say with regard to planting a tree next to a neighbor's cistern, this one digs within his land, and that one plants within his land, and neither individual need to consider what is happening in the property of the other, right? So you have the roots of the tree could impact the cistern, but Yossi is saying, no big deal. You have a right to use your property any way you want, and your neighbor has a right to use their property any way they want. And so if you're building two things that one might impact the other, it doesn't matter, Yossi says, because your property is your property, and it exists in a vacuum in relation to neighbors' properties, as opposed to our Mishnah that says, no, you have to be aware of what's on your neighbor's property, so that what you build doesn't impact it. Now, an answer to this could be that it's one thing if the tree has already been there and the cistern has already been there. It's another thing if one property has something that's always been there and you're building something new. So the new thing is not allowed to impact the old thing that's already been there on a neighbor's property. Maybe that's what the Gemara will say. The Gemara answers, you may even say that the Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, as didn't Rav Ashi say. When we were studying in the study hall of Rav Kahana, he would say to us that Rabbi Yossi concedes with regard to his arrows. That is, he concedes that one must distance himself if his actions will cause damage to his neighbor. Here too, sometimes when he places the ladder, the mongoose might be sitting in a hole and will immediately jump up and climb the ladder to the dovecote. The Gemara challenges, but that is indirect. That is indirect damage, and he is not the immediate cause. Rav Tovi Bar Matana said, that is to say, that it is prohibited to cause even indirect damage. Like the mongoose was just waiting for an opportunity, and you just happened to place a ladder there, that was indirect. The Gemara, yes, Bess.
I'm having trouble believing that 2,000 years ago's homes had roof gutters. It wasn't terrible rain and it wasn't a lot of leaves falling. I don't understand that. Is it
Um,
true? I've never seen pictures of 2,000-year-old or previous homes with gutters
I don't know. I haven't paid attention myself,
and
but
downspouts. I,
well, when it rains in the rainy season, it rains a lot, so you would need to have gutters. Um, Look, houses in Israel today, there aren't too many communities that have single-family homes, but those that do have gutters. Um, but I don't know if 1,500 years ago, apparently they had gutters because the Gemara is talking about it. So, yeah, I don't know. Really, I haven't thought about home construction until the Gemara brings it up.
when we go to Israel in December, I'm going to look.
Take a look. Okay, but again, that's new construction. So you'd have to,
Museum, whatever.
yeah, you'd have to when we walk through the old city maybe. But even that's new construction there too. So I don't know. The Gemara relates, Rav Yosef had certain palm trees and, oh, there's a mongoose. Um, okay. Oh, wait. So the Gemara relates, Rav Yosef had certain palm trees and bloodletters would come and sit beneath them and perform their work there. And crows would come, eat the blood, and fly up to the palm trees and damage the dates. Okay, so you get that? So somebody has palm trees on their property. Individual people are doing their business, their bloodletting business under the palm trees. And these are date palms. So the person who owns the palm trees is hoping to harvest dates from them. But the fact that these random bloodletters are doing their business under the palm tree, they are attracting crows to there who will be eating the blood from the ground, I guess, and then going up into the tree to digest what they've just eaten, and then they'll see dates there, and they're going to eat the dates too. Right? So you get this scenario. Rav Yosef said to the bloodletters, remove these crowing birds from here. That is, leave in order to avoid further damage. Abaye said to him, but it is an indirect action, as the bloodletters themselves are not damaging the dates. Rav Yosef said to him that Rav Tovi Bar Matana said as follows, that is to say, that it is prohibited to cause even indirect damage. Right? So the bloodletters aren't damaging the dates themselves, but their business, as a result of the business that they're doing, they're attracting the crows that are causing the damage. So the bloodletters should move, and if they move, the crows move. Abaye said to Rav Yosef, but they have established an acquired privilege to use that particular spot for their work, right? So they had an agreement with the date palm tree owner that they can work under the trees. Rav Yosef replied, doesn't Rav Nachman say that Rabba Bar Avu says there is no acquired privilege of use in cases of damage, right? So it doesn't matter that they have an agreement. Even if they have an agreement, the bloodletters are still causing indirect damage to those date palms. that is, an established situation may not be allowed to continue in the event that damage results. Abaye inquired further, but wasn't it stated with regard to that statement of Rav Nachman that Rav Mari said it's referring specifically to smoke, and Rav Zevid said it's referring to a bathroom? In other words, this principle was stated specifically in the context of damage caused by these substances, smoke and waste matter. Rav Yosef said to him, for me, as I am sensitive, these are like smoke and a bathroom to me, which is why I have the right to demand that the bloodletters leave. Right, so it depends on how much damage the crows are causing to the dates. And it depends on, everybody has a different level of acceptance of damage to their property. Okay, it's 10:18 and there's a new Mishnah here and my throat is not doing so great. So we're going to stop here for today. We will have class next Sunday. So we have class. So next Sunday is the 19th and then it's the 26th. So we have class the next 2 Sundays. But the third Sunday from now, which is November 2nd, we will not have class because it'll be my daughter's wedding that day. So,
Of all the excuses.
right, I know. So at least I'm sick now, and it's not 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So
Get better. Get better.
thank you. Have a good day, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the Sukkot holiday.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good hugs.